Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report.
Really? Oh, wait, really? The Jesse Blake Sports Report. That's it?
Don't forget, it's the Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
That's kind of redundant.
Dude, is there a problem?
No, it's fine. I just, I thought maybe you guys would come up with something, good.
Man, just read it.
You know what? Doesn't matter to me. I get paid by the word. Let's do this.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake. Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
Welcome to another episode of the Jesse Blake Sports Report. Today, we are lucky to be in the presence of Cam Lewis, content creator over at Blue Jays Nation, host of the great podcast, Blue Jays Nation Radio. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. Cam, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
How's it going, Jesse? Thanks for having me on.
I'm good. I wanna start with the All-Star game tonight. It goes tonight, Dodger Stadium. Second All-Star game since the pandemic happened. We had to skip 1 year. The American League's on like an 8 All-Star game winning streak. But like this season in particular, the All-Star game is kind of worth watching because MLB revealed that if there's a tie at the end of 9 innings, they're going to have a home run derby.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. So I think we're kind of now all hoping that that's exactly what happens. Is we're hoping that, okay, say the American League's up by 2 runs in the 9th inning, you bring in like a position player to pitch and give up a couple of runs because we all want to see that. I don't know if this would ever be a thing that makes its way into an actual big league game. I think that'd be a little bit crazy. But if there ever was a time to just be like, okay, who can hit the most dingers in 9 at-bats? That adds a flair to the All-Star game that I don't think we've ever really seen before. And everyone loves the home run derby. Like that's the one part of, if you look at all the All-Star games and all the North American sports, like the home run derby, I think is one of the most appealing things that any league does. So if you can find a way to get that into a game that matters, that's super fun.
Yeah, it seems to be universally loved. Like, unlike the slam dunk competition has kind of fallen out of favor recently because people have kind of done all the dunks, and then everybody universally hates the NHL All-Star game because it kind of sucks. And then the MLB's kind of figured it out with this home run derby thing, and then incorporating into the game, it's genius.
Exactly. Everyone loves dingers. That's the thing with baseball, and no better time than the All-Star game. You have all these guys that can just mash. And Dodger Stadium's a cool park too, so it's just let's sit back, and it's almost like watching golf. It's like, okay, like I get to see this cool aesthetic ballpark with guys just launching balls into space, and that's what baseball's all about.
Right. And like, I don't think we should rule it out for it ever being a part of the regular season game, because like the idea that the shootout in hockey decides regular season hockey games is absurd. Like there's no way it should decide games, but it does. So maybe one day we get the home run derby deciding actual baseball games.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be shocking to me. Like it seems like Major League Baseball is like looking to lean into these more, I guess, quote unquote gimmicky things. Like, during the lockout, they were talking about ways to spice up the playoffs. And it was like, oh, how about, you have more teams and the number one team then gets to pick their opponent in the first round. And we can have like a big show on MLB Network where, the Yankees decide, hey, we want to face the Jays in the first round. The Jays fans start melting down because the Yankees think the Jays are bad. It's just good for beef. So MLB is trying to make themselves a bit more youthful, a little bit more interesting. For some people that works, for some people it doesn't. But given the way things are moving, it wouldn't be shocking to me if within the next 5 years we see a thing like this for tiebreakers.
Yeah, we saw the runners starting on second base happen last year because they need to get all the games in quickly. But like something like that, it got abandoned pretty quickly because of all the hate they received from it. But like there was a start. And to catch anybody up, if you don't know the rules going into tonight's All-Star game, so beginning with the current collective bargaining agreement, any All-Star game tied after 9 innings will be settled with not extra innings, but with a home run derby. The managers will select 3 players, and we know the players. It's Ty France, Julio Rodriguez, Kyle Tucker for the American League, and then National League. It's Pete Alonso, Ronald Acuna Jr., and Kyle Schwarber. And then each of those players gets 3 swings, and the team with the highest combined home run total wins the entire game. So those are the rules for everybody out there. And Cam, sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. We got the odds for the game tonight. It's about even on both sides. Nobody's really the favorite because it's an all-star game. It's about 2-1 of your money. Where are you placing a bet? Who are you picking? American League, National League?
Well, I'm a homer, so I got to go with the American League. We've got a lot of Blue Jays in the game, so maybe that's a positive. I like you said, it's an all-star game, so everyone's good. It's random. It's difficult to select, but American League always seems to win these things, so I think they're just going to keep rolling.
Yeah. Like I would also lean heavy on the American League just because you got to root for all the Jays that are there.
I think it's the stronger league too, to be honest with you. You look at the teams and you're just like, damn, there is a lot of talent in this league. There seems to be more terrible teams in the National League and more mediocre teams.
The bottom of the National League seems like just a wasteland of just awful teams.
Just teams without like a good guy. Teams where I'm just like, who's the best guy on the Reds? And you're like, I'm not really sure. Who's the best guy on the Pirates? Like that kind of thing. Whereas the American League, there's a lot more star power.
You're like,
I could be totally wrong, though.
Is it still Joey Votto? And he's the 35-year-old there,
That's pretty much where that franchise is at.
Yeah. They're the one-man franchise. So, if you're going to place a bet there, it's 19 plus, and please play responsibly. I'm going to be watching the All-Star game tonight. It seems like it's going to, and there's no other sports on, so I'm not really given a choice if I want sports content tonight. So, the All-Star game it is. Let's rewind to last Wednesday. And I was listening to you and Tyler on Blue Jays Nation Radio debating about whether this news dump of Charlie Montoyo being fired by the Blue Jays was purposely done in the middle of free agency frenzy here in Canada as a way to hide the news and shield it from the eyes of Canadians. Because we were all talking about, Engvall's getting re-signed, and nobody's really focusing on the Blue Jays manager. Did you think that this news dump of the Blue Jays firing their manager was done on purpose in the middle of free agency frenzy last Wednesday?
It just seems all too convenient, right? Like there was also the thing we discussed, which was, well, they couldn't really do it because Budzinski's daughter passed away. And that's obviously a tragic event the team is dealing with. And then all the coaching staff and multiple players went to a funeral on the Monday following the Seattle series. So Charlie winds up getting fired on the Wednesday. He manages a win on the Tuesday and gets fired right after, which is what made it seem so bizarre. You really, I guess hypothetically you could have done it on the Tuesday immediately following the team all going to the funeral, but there's a lot of balls in the air there. It does kind of make sense, but it just, to me, it seems all too convenient. Like maybe they could have waited until the All-Star break to execute it. Maybe they could have waited till the beginning of the Kansas City series. It just, again, it makes too much sense that it wouldn't be shocking to me if there was a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge with the decision makers being like, you know what, like, let's put this here on a day where, the news cycle is going to be largely focused on something else so that we don't create ourselves a controversy, so that we can be continually viewed in a positive light.
Yeah, and I thought Ken Rosenthal wrote an article that, following day about how it was a cold decision to have him fired directly after the tragedy that happened in the Blue Jays management circles, and that hit me it shocked me that Rosenthal would take such a direct stance against Blue Jays management and what happened there in the sequence of events in the timeline. It was very clear, he put a line in the sand that, hey, this wasn't good timing at all by anybody's part, by management.
No, not at all. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that most certainly could have waited until the All-Star break to do it. Because, it happens and John Schneider comes in and he gets the final game of that 2-gamer against Philly and then a 4-gamer against Kansas City. And then, you have a whole bunch of time off here. You can kind of get it done and then Schneider can come in at the beginning of the second half of the season. But I guess they wanted to give John Schneider those few games right before the All-Star break to kind of land and get the attention of the room and then get some momentum going into the All-Star break so they can come out strong. Maybe that was the logic. It's really hard to say, but I wouldn't blame anybody for thinking that it wasn't the best optics the way it all shook out. It's an unfortunate situation, a tragedy. Obviously, you can't predict that, but maybe they could have waited off a little bit longer.
Yeah. And it seems like Atkins and Chaparro got what they wanted because the Blue Jays went 5-1 with Schneider's first 6 games there. So they got the momentum into the All-Star break. And after that firing happens, we hear all of these stories come out by reporting by Caitlin McGrath and Shai Davidi, who are talking to the players. And then we hear that Charlie Montoyo's kind of lost the locker room, and that's kind of the reason that he was fired. Like, what do you make of the whole situation about like Bichette coming out and saying he doesn't disagree with the firing, and then anonymous players saying that, yeah, we needed a firmer voice in that room?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's not something that I necessarily saw coming, because I always thought that Charlie was a well-liked manager by the players. I kind of felt like he created a good atmosphere for them to, be themselves, be young, fun baseball players. They do the home run jacket. They have all their celebrations. They operate with, I think, more of a flair than we see most other teams in Major League Baseball have. And I think Charlie's a part of that because he creates a calm atmosphere. But that being said, I think if you looked hard enough, you could kind of see instances where there was frustration with decisions Charlie was making. There was in the first game against Kansas City, or against Philadelphia, right before Charlie wound up getting fired, is he challenged a play at first base that Vladdy pretty clearly was shaking off. Don't challenge this play, and challenged anyway. And Vladdy looked visibly angry about it. There was also a report that came out while they were just after they had finished up in Seattle on the Sunday. A Seattle beat reporter said that it was clear being around the bench that the Jays were angry at their manager and they weren't happy with him. So yeah, it's not tremendously shocking this kind of stuff doesn't come out, because I don't think too many players want to be going out and telling that to a media guy in the room at that time. Or if a media person does hear that and you go ahead and report on it while Charlie's still employed, then you kind of lose the trust of those in the room. And I guess that's the challenge you're navigating is, yes, you're a journalist, but you're also like, you need to maintain your contacts. So there's this and that. But millions of times we have seen a coach or somebody get fired, and all of a sudden when they're on their way out, that's when we hear everything. And this won't be the last time this happens.
Yeah, I had one of the quotes here. It was the Bichette quote in particular is, I think we needed something to send us in the right direction. This is not my area to worry about. We'll come to the field ready to play as hard as we can. The front office has made their decision on what they thought was necessary. I don't disagree. I think they'll bring direction. I think they'll bring accountability. They'll bring a presence that's really important for a team. He's speaking about the new manager. And I'm super excited for Casey to get here and for Schneitz to get the opportunity. And the way I kind of look at the situation is, a lot of the decision making by Montoyo is kind of taken out of his hands. Like, okay, we can debate over you bring in a pitcher at this time or your lineup card, but when you're a baseball manager, you're really just a people manager. You're managing the players, and if he lost the players, then that's it. Then like there was no other decision for management to make but let him go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also kind of the ironic thing for Charlie and the Shapiro-Atkins front office is that a big thing when Charlie was hired was that he was kind of brought in to be a vessel for them. Is he was going to manage in their style. They were pretty analytics, high performance department focused. So there was always kind of a joke in Blue Jays circles, which is, oh, it's just the algorithm or the spreadsheet deciding who's going to pitch here, who's going to pinch hit, or who's going to do what. And my guess would be the players on the team were aware of that and kind of said internally or maybe out loud that, okay, is Charlie really even a manager, or is it the computer? And then there was also word that John Schneider's already been doing, different strategic stuff with the team before he was put into the role. So it kind of seems like Schneider had been the manager or the motivator, I guess, at heart for quite some time, especially because he has that connection with guys from AA when they won the championship. So yeah, ultimately it did seem kind of inevitable, though it is kind of unfortunate. I feel bad for Charlie because I think he did everything the front office asked of him, and he just kind of wound up being their scapegoat or their sacrificial lamb, I guess.
Yeah, the word I keep hearing as after he got fired was people pleaser. Like he seemed to be in agreement with everybody around him, that everybody got along with Charlie. Like no one disagreed with him, but that was kind of what the players didn't need at the time. They needed somebody to really kick them in the butt, and Charlie wasn't going to be that guy because he was too on the side of everybody in the front office and in the bench.
Right. Though there is a little bit of an irony with that. And when you see a guy like Bo Bichette, for example, saying, I don't necessarily disagree with firing Charlie, he is, I think, a player who benefited quite a bit from Charlie's calmness and his patience, because there's been people screaming that Bo's not good enough defensively to play short for quite some time. And it seemed that even if he was booting balls or making the same throw that sailed over the first baseman, he continued to go out and play short the next day. And if there's a more old school, more hold you accountable manager, Bo might be a second baseman right now. So there is a little bit of an irony there, though I don't disagree. The Jays, I think it does seem fairly loose on that team, and they could use a kick in the ass to kind of get themselves, I guess, more focused. That's kind of a cheesy hockey fan way of looking at it, but that's just how this market views the Jays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I empathize, though I do see it from both sides.
Yeah, and we're never going to get away from the hockey fandom here.
Yeah, absolutely
it's
not.
Always going to be number one. Yeah, and with the Schneider upgrade to manager, like, it reminds me of another situation here in Toronto of the Dwayne Casey firing and then bringing in Nick Nurse. You know, Nick Nurse was regarded as the guy who really implemented the defense that made the Raptors stand out. And they let go of Dwayne Casey, and they just brought in the guy who's kind of doing all the strategic stuff anyways. And what we've heard and what it looks like is that Schneider was kind of running the whole show. You know, he was kind of doing all of the minutia while Charlie was managing, and now they've just upgraded his position so he can do it all now. Yeah,
pretty much. And there was also word that Schneider was getting attention from different teams as somebody who could be a future manager in the big leagues, whereas with Charlie, and this isn't meant to be like a criticism of Charlie, this is just what I've seen reported, is that he was, even like before he was hired by the Jays, there was no talk that really this guy was in the discussion to manage somewhere else. There wasn't really a concern, oh, Charlie might up and leave us. Whereas with John Schneider, it was like, okay, we view this guy deep down as the manager of the future. The players like him. The young guys like him. There's, teams saying they might interview him this winter. So I think we have to pull the trigger and give him his role. And that probably played into it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like moving forward for the Jays the rest of the season, this weekend series that they had against Kansas City and Philly, there was a lot of promising things there. Like the relief pitching, really it kind of turned around a bit there. There wasn't a lot of runs given up. Trevor Richards looked good. I don't know. It seemed like, okay, the firing is gonna stabilize things, and moving forward here, we reset after these 4 days, and then now it's got to get going. Do you think the team's underperformed so far? Because I'm definitely in that camp. That, hey, we got World Series expectations, not third wild card position expectations. Let's get things going here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Jays are 50-43 at the All-Star break. The last few games there, like you said, it was kind of a weird roller coaster ride because, okay, so Philadelphia and Kansas City, it's 6 games, they go 5-1. But for some reason in your head, it doesn't feel like they went 5-1 during that stretch because they lost that one really terrible 3-1 game to Kansas City right off the hop. And then they came back and edged them out a couple times. And it's like, well, this is the Royals missing 10 guys. This should be a team you roll over. But I mean, there's no such thing as an easy win. But yeah, like the Jays are 50-43. That's pretty good. Like, it's better than what it could be. You could be the Chicago White Sox, the team that's supposed to win their division, and they're, under 500, and you have a big hill to climb. Whereas for the Jays, like, you're in a playoff spot right now. It's about maintaining where you are. So it could be worse, but it's far from ideal. Like, this isn't a season where it's just like, let's make the playoffs and see what happens. This is a season where it's like, if you don't win a playoff series, then the year is considered a failure. Like, the Jays are all in. They're trying to win. They're trying to do something in the playoffs. And, if they come up short against the Yankees or something in the ALCS, that's fine. It's not a huge loss. That's baseball. But if they finish 6th in the American League and just get swept aside by whoever, that's definitely not going to be a win. So we need to see more from the team in the second half. And I guess over the next 2.5 weeks here before the trade deadline, the team's going to show the front office whether they're worth going all in on. They had a pretty significant trade deadline last year. They had a significant trade deadline in the COVID year too, when they acquired Robbie Ray, Ross Stripling, Taijuan Walker. Last year it's Barrios. That was a huge get. So are they going to do it again? Or are they going to sit there and be like, what, like, we'll try and see what happens with what we have, but we're not comfortable trading prospects away this year? It's a really important next couple of weeks, really.
Yeah, this little stretch here is going to be season defining for them because, yeah, it's the name that everybody wants to say in relation to the Jays. Juan Soto, The next couple of weeks is like, okay, do we make the giant move where we send 7 prospects out for the guy who could be one of the best hitters for the next decade in Major League Baseball? Or do we not have enough? Or even if we don't have enough, is he the guy who you bring in who pushes the team to the next level? And if older baseball fans are listening out there, you might remember back in 2007 when the Florida Marlins traded Miguel Cabrera to the Detroit Tigers. Like this situation, when he was 24 and one of the best hitters in baseball and already won a World Series. Juan Soto, 23, already won a World Series, one of the best hitters in baseball. That deal took 7 prospects and taking on a giant contract of Dontrelle Willis. Right now, the Nationals are in a very similar situation. And do you think, Cam, that the Blue Jays have enough capital, prospect capital, to get that deal done and bring in Soto and pay him hundreds of millions of dollars?
Yeah, I think honestly, like they're a team that could get it done. I mean, the Jays, they're owned by Rogers. They have a tremendous amount of money to operate with. We haven't yet seen them. Like we've seen the Shapiro-Atkins front office spend. George Springer, Kevin Gausman, Barrios. They're not afraid to spend money, but we haven't seen them explode over the luxury tax and, have a huge LA Dodgers payroll. And I mean, the Jays have one pretty, like they have a few needs, but a pretty significant need they have is adding a left-handed bat. And I mean, Soto is like an insanely good hitter, like not just like a pretty good young player. This is a guy that's like something close to a 1,000 OPS over 5 years in the league. So if you're the Jays and your contention window's right now, and this guy's going to make your lineup significantly better because he gives you that excellent left-handed bat, I think you shouldn't be afraid to sell the farm 100%. But the other thing to consider is that Washington's probably also going to want to get back a young player that's already on the roster so they can sell jerseys and tickets next year. I mean, it can't just be 7 minor leaguers going back. Like they might say like, okay, on top of Gabe Moreno, Ricky Tiedemann, and Aurelvis Martinez and Nate Pearson, we also want Bo. And you have to ask yourself, okay, like, is it worth it giving up a guy from the team right now to add another guy that can help right now? Like, where do you draw the line? Like, okay, maybe Bo's a bit too much. And then they say, well, I want Alejandro Kirk. He's a all-star starting catcher. Is that something you can accept? Or is that, well, this guy's on the team right now and he's making the team better. We can't get rid of him. And that's kind of the challenge, I think, for the Jays is accepting who on the current roster you allow to go back in a trade. I think the one player, I mean, Vladdy's obviously going nowhere, but the other player you simply can't give up is Alek Manoah. If Washington comes back and they're like, well, we need your number 1 arm, but you can't do that because that's going to, shaft your starting rotation. So the Jays have to ask themselves, how comfortable are they probably giving up a good young player? And that's not an easy thing to do.
What's your list? My list ends at those 2 names you mentioned, Vladdy and Manoah. That's it. I think everybody else is tradable if you're getting Juan Soto back. Where do you end your list?
I think that's probably where I'm at too.
Okay.
It depends on the context. Yeah, like I have a hard time wrapping my head around trading Vladdy. I don't really see how you do trading a franchise icon like that. Seems unrealistic to me. And then Manoah is the homegrown potential to be the best homegrown pitcher since Roy Halladay. I don't think that's unreasonable to say. And then with Bo, it's, he had a phenomenal season last year and he's regressed a bit this year to a point where some people could make the argument that Kirk is more valuable because he's a fantastic 2-way catcher that can hit and defend, whereas Bo's a bit of an enigmatic shortstop, bat first guy, not a tremendously amazing glove, not a gold glove caliber guy, but you can make that argument. And I think some people might value Kirk over Bo, but I'd say, yeah, definitely those are my 2. Vladdy and Manoah cannot be involved in the trade. Otherwise you're that's shooting yourself in the foot quite a bit, but geez, it's pretty hard to part with Kirk or Bo as well. That's really tough. But I also really love the idea of acquiring Soto. So I think I'll leave my untouchables at those 2. It's just Vladdy and it's just Manoah.
Kirk is such a great story too.
He is.
Like after struggling and like the way the Blue Jays found him. I believe he was playing in a Tijuana league down in Mexico, and they paid him like $7,500 when he was a teenager to come join their farm system. And like he's an unbelievable story. Like I'd hate to see him go, but and then you're like, you're getting Juan Soto back. Yeah,
you got to give to get, and that's just the way it is. And Juan Soto's, I mean, you're adding like as good of a bat as you can possibly add to the middle of your lineup, and one you need so badly because they are so right-handed.
Yeah, the lefty situation. It's that and the bullpen. That, and probably a fifth starter. Like if you're really getting greedy, like that's probably the Blue Jays needs. And the trade deadline's coming up here, so we'll see what they do. And before I let you go here, Cam, I just want to know, what did you think of the Oilers offseason so far, and who won free agency frenzy?
Well, I will say from an Oilers perspective, it's been pretty wild to see just how they managed to just destroy the Calgary Flames franchise. You had that playoff series win in the second round, and then Johnny Gaudreau says, "I'm out." And now Matt Tkachuk looks like he's saying, "I'm out as well." And it's like we've gone from these two teams being at the top of the division, duking it out, to the Flames look like they're about to implode. But Oilers themselves, I think it's been positive. I mean, I think the goal is you're coming in with very little cap space, and they managed to get a bit more cap space with Duncan Keith retiring and Mike Smith going on the LTIR. And they brought the band back from last year while also probably making an upgrade in net. I mean, as Toronto people know, Jack Campbell might not be the A1 starting goalie, but I think he's probably more of a consistent option than either Smith or Mikko Koskinen. So that's probably an upgrade. But as Toronto people know, I don't think many Leafs fans wanted to offer Jack Campbell 5 years, $5 million annually. So,
well, everybody in Toronto is very familiar with the Oilers because it's basically Toronto from 2 years ago plus Draisaitl and McDavid.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's been 3 off seasons in a row now. They've added a Leaf. It was Barry, then last year it was CC, and now it's Hyman too, and now it's Jack Campbell. So we're only 2 years away from Austin Matthews starting in Edmonton.
hey,
you never know. McDavid goes east, Matthews goes west. Sure, why not? Let's get some chaos in here.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with management over there and their need to bring in ex-Leafs, but
that's the one shocking thing about it is that Ken Holland just loves the 2019-20 Leafs, yet he didn't make Mike Babcock the head coach of the Oilers, which I quite honestly really thought was going to happen back when they fired Dave Tippett. I thought it was inevitable, and it didn't happen.
Gosh. That the mess that would have been. If of all markets, I don't think he would have survived Edmonton very long.
Yeah, that would have been a hell of a challenge for Mike Babcock.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Anyways, well, thank you. Maybe one day I'll bring you on just to strictly talk hockey.
Sure, I'd happily talk. I have all kinds of things to say about the Oilers and Flames relationship right now. We're riding very high.
Oh yeah, you guys don't claim you destroyed their franchise. Like, it's a little far. I feel bad for Flames fans. They're going through it right now. But I'm sorry. Not been great the last month for them. Yeah.
To be fair, I will say this about the Flames. I think they can probably rebound. I think Nazem Kadri would be a great fit for them. I just think if you can keep Tkachuk around and you can add Kadri, you'd have the most annoying team to play against in the NHL. And They have a fantastic goalie. They have depth. They can still most certainly be a playoff team next year without Gaudreau, and I'd rather have them be a playoff team because Edmonton and Calgary playing in the playoffs is fantastic. That's what we want, and it's so infrequent these two teams are good at the same time. Yeah,
it's fantastic when it's competitive, and this year it wasn't quite that at the end, No. So yeah, one day I'll bring you on just to talk hockey, but today it was for all of your wonderful baseball knowledge, and I really appreciate it, Cam. That's Cam Lewis, content creator over at Blue Jays Nation. Find him also on Oilers Nation and all the daily face-off.
Daily face-off. Yeah, that's right.
And listen to Blue Jays Nation Radio as well, wherever you find your podcasts. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Jesse. I appreciate it.
That is it for us today. I just wanted to hop on here and update you on the schedule moving forward before I take a long break in August from podcasting and all this content creation. I'm going to be taking a long break there. So I'm going to have 3, possibly 4 more podcasts on this podcast feed coming up in the next couple weeks. In the next 3 weeks, I'll have 3 and maybe 4th. I might squeeze in a 4th there as well. One of the ones I'm really excited about that I'll tell you about right now is after the race in Hungary, the F1 race in Hungary on the 31st. That following week, I'm going to have a big breakdown of the season that was so far and the season look ahead. So I'm very excited for that one. Look for that the week of August 1st. Yeah, almost at the summer break time. Almost time to peace out and recharge for the big, long run into the fall. But yeah, thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here right now, watching or listening to this right now. I appreciate you. I'll see you a couple more times Poor Augie. Take it.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake, powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.